Hi, this is Peter Woolfolk. First, thank you so very much for being a listener to the Public Relations Review podcast. I would really appreciate your leaving a review of the podcast. Let me know what you think. To make it easy, you can go directly to the podcast website, and that is publicrelationsreviewpodcast.com. There, you can go directly to the review page to leave your review. So let me know what you think of the podcast. And again, thank you so very, very much for being a listener.
Welcome to the multiple award-winning Public Relations Review podcast, ranked by Apple among the top 1% of podcasts worldwide. Each episode features distinguished American and international guests who explore a wide range of public relations topics, including AI, digital trends, crisis communications, storytelling, media relations, and more. Our conversations bring together seasoned professionals, business leaders, authors, academics, and government officials and others to share their insights and expertise. Now, here is your host and producer, Peter Woolfolk.
Now, a question to my listeners. How good are you at building brands that stand out? How authentic is your storytelling? And how targeted is your media pitching? Well, hopefully you're in a good place. Unfortunately, many are not. My guest today says she can change that. She has moved clients from being invisible to building a brand the media cannot ignore. Her coaches, consultants, corporate leaders, and other clients have received placements in Forbes, USA Today, and Business Leader, just to name a few. Now, she's here today to share her approach to helping businesses grow their visibility and their reputation. So joining me today from Vancouver, British Columbia, is Anna Tran. She is the co-founder and PR strategist with Level Up with Anna. Anna, welcome to the podcast.
Pleasure is mine, Peter. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I'm actually looking forward to this because as I read some of the things that you do, I think our clients will be really, really interested in hearing. So why don't we start first with how you go about helping people or clients grow their visibility?
Absolutely. And that's a big one today, especially when everybody is in their information gathering phase. The internet is so accessible and leveraging AI nowadays, right? So over the years, working in sales, door-to-door, B2B, and then evolving into online marketing, there was a commonality, and it was the trust piece. And then that's how we evolved from consulting firm into this branch, which is Level Up with Anna PR, because we found that the commonality between each client that we were working with, it came down to building trust and reputation. When you have all this marketing in place, sometimes you'll experience high traffic, no conversions. And that's where we come in to help really make that message, your message, consistent to your audience on all platforms.
Well, let's talk about what are some of the things that you have found they were lacking so that that were causing them not to make the conversions that they were seeking.
Absolutely. So the thing that stood out the most was inconsistency. Say you have a good running ad campaign. However, when somebody goes onto your profile or your website, there's a disconnect, right? And that disconnect could be, okay, what's in it for me? It's not really clear. The solution is not there. And if the solution is there and the message is clear, the next question is, can I trust this? Will this actually solve my problem, right? And how do you kind of help guide the viewer or the audience through that process, answer all their questions, and give them peace of mind so that they take the next action, which is either signing up for your service or making a purchase, whatever the solution they're looking for, right? So that is the commonality, and I would say that's something that a lot of people kind of look over, and they'll take a look at their traffic, right, Peter? And then they'll be like, oh, wow, I'm getting thousands of people through my door, but there's no conversions. And then that's where we kind of try to identify the gaps and work backwards from there.
Now, when they tell you that, the question comes up, how am I going to solve my problem? How do you go about analyzing what it is they're doing and not doing to help them reach some sort of satisfactory outcome in that particular issue?
Yeah. So this is a lot simpler than you think. Most of the time, It's being able to display the solutions in a way that speaks to the audience, in a language that speaks to the audience, and in a simplified way so that they can see, okay, option A, option B, option C, this is fit for me, and help them identify that, right? And oftentimes it's just making it user-friendly so they can read it on both, all their devices, and having a good call to action. So the way you word the call to action on your site or on your ad, something like find out more or buy today, something like that, something very direct could make a huge difference.
What have you found, let's say, to be the biggest obstacle people have faced? I'm sure there are a boatload of those obstacles, but what are the top one or two major obstacles that people run into and have difficulty with?
Yeah. So once you get to a point, a high level point, right, and you have clients, the major problem, I would say, is the trust. Because, for example, I had this client that was making $2 to $4 million a month. However, they were finding that their visibility is causing them to lose partnerships and even losing potential talent when they're looking to recruit, because there's just no footprint online for these next level partnerships or employees to confirm that they're legit, or they want to work with them, but there's no confirmation. So I would say the visibility aspect, as well as being able to confirm any doubts, especially if you're making those claims that you are able to solve high-level problems at that rate. Making $2 to $4 million a month, you're solving high-level problems, right? How are these other partnerships that you're trying to work with able to confirm that? If that makes sense, Peter.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about basically what some of those solutions are. If visibility is one of them, what are some of the strategies and or tactics you use to help them gain that visibility?
Absolutely. So it's just getting third-party validation through media coverage, strategic placements. I call it purposeful PR, to build a connection with your audience and deliver and position you in a way where they can see you when they need you. And it's what people will see when you're not there in person, so that they can kind of get a perception of how it's like working with you before even getting into contact with you. So I like to do this exercise when I do a strategy session with potential clients, is Googling their first and last name or their business and seeing what shows up. And then even further, checking all of their profiles and making sure that everything is consistent, because sometimes, you can have an Instagram page and it's you on vacation, you're fishing, but let's just say you are a high-level speaker and we don't see any of that. So we don't know, okay, is this really you or is this another George with the same last name, if that makes sense here? But have you ran into that issue before? Like, you want to work with somebody and you try to Google them and, you're not sure who's who in the zoo, right?
Well, as I listen to you when you say platforms, there's so many of them out there. How do you decide which ones or all of them should they use? How do you go about making that decision in terms of which platforms to use?
Yeah, so that's the beauty of PR and my agency, is we don't have any cookie cutter, packages. What we do is we identify, okay, what business you are, what you do, and what your audience, who your target audience is, and then work backwards from there. So with this type of this certain business, for example, what is the best platform to associate you with to build that trust of your target audience? So it just really depends on who, what, and who they're trying to work with.
Mm-hmm. Now, there's also, I guess, a bit of their reputation being built as well, in terms of not only getting visibility, but also there's some reputation attached to that as well.
Exactly. So if you, even a simple podcast interview, who's interviewing, who you associate yourself with, you want to make sure that it's all aligned with your audience, and who they trust as well, right? So I had a really good chat with a Forbes contributor, and he would always get pitches. However, few take the extra step to understand that he only writes about automotive. And even if it's good to be associated with Forbes, right, you got to take the extra step in understanding, okay, what contributor does what and how you should approach them.
Well, I've certainly heard that before because too many people, as I say, I shouldn't say too many, but there are some who will just say, I'm going to throw all these pictures out there and see what sticks. Well, that's not only is it a waste of time, but you can get on the wrong side of some journalists, or if in fact you continue to do that, because they can see that you must not know what you're doing if you keep sending us things and we don't get back to you. There's something wrong with that picture.
Exactly, and it's all relationship building as well. So you got to take that extra step, and it's so easy to leverage AI platforms nowadays to do the pitches for you, but you can't replace that human touch.
Mm-hmm. Well, now, did you talk about which particular platforms you like, and how do you go about identifying a platform for a client?
Yeah, that's very specific. It's case by case, really, Peter. And I mean, there's so many great platforms. I do have close relationship with over 700 different publications and publishers and platforms. And it just depends on the client that I'm working with, the individual that I'm working with. There's so many great podcasts like yourself that I would reach out to get, the right person on, right? However, I wouldn't pitch, somebody who's like, that's a chef, for example, on a car show.
Right. Well, it's unfortunate because I shouldn't say unfortunate, but we do get a lot of pitches from, and some of them from people specifically directly from themselves. And there are firms, if you will, that or placement firm, PR placement people that have clients, and because I can see where it's coming from. And, it depends upon how good they are at making placements, because they should know, my being a PR podcast, I'm not interested in interviewing chefs or talking about cooking or clothing or anything along those lines, but this is not what we do. But so I think if people using your service or you having these clients, I mean, they're aware that you can help them because you know who to go to do the reach out part of, if you will.
Yeah, and it all goes back to just blasting everybody and seeing what sticks.
What are one of the perhaps most difficult clients you've had in terms of getting placement or visibility for? And then how did you go about solving that particular issue?
Yes. Okay. So there are a few, but the most difficult ones are the ones that think that PR is a magic button or that will solve their problems. So,
I've been there.
And they think that it's kind of like, they expect it to be like marketing. However, marketing and PR, if done right, and they can work in tandem and do great things for your business. However, they are not the same. So how I overcome that is I tell them right from the start that, hey, I'm not going to promise you the world. This is the difference between PR and marketing. Marketing generates attention. It will get people through the door. However, it won't help with conversions if it's not aligned. And it could not just be PR only that you're missing. It could be your user experience on your website, the messaging, being able to add to cart, if there's anything that's wrong with your website, that could be an issue. But also PR, on the other hand, you have to understand that it generates interest in qualified buyers. So it will bring you the favorability in the market compared to another brand that may be your competitor. However, they're not the same. It will lower the barrier of entry for clients to take an action, but it's not going to instantly give you thousands of leads, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, I was just saying, so that's how I would overcome that, but I'm sure you understand those type of clients too.
Well, the other thing I think about sometimes is, have you run across any initial clients, maybe in a large corporation? Because sometimes you've heard the fact that maybe the CEO or senior vice president or something might not have a lot of confidence in what public relations does. So they're probably a little slow on getting involved in it. Have you had any experiences that you've had to make that kind of transition, if you will, or education, if you will, so that they can get on board a little bit faster?
Yeah. Fortunately, my marketing team is pretty good at dialing down the message. So the people that I get to strategize with on my calendar, my calls that book with me, they already have an understanding that they need PR. However, the ones that I do have to, like, there are occasionally the ones that I have to walk through the process with. At the end of the conversation, they'll have an understanding, and usually they're kind of looking for like a one-stop shop.
Mm-hmm.
So branding gets involved, marketing, the messaging. Sometimes when they work with other agencies, the agencies don't really go through who their ideal avatar is, and doing that work, how do you say it, that kind of like worksheet to understand and dial down the message, because then that will tie into how they want to be presented in the market, right? So we'll do that with them and break it down and kind of shed light on the areas of, hey, what do you need to have prepared, or the teams that you have to have in place, such as marketing, such as social media, so that you can properly leverage and maximize the placements that we will get you in.
You know, I think that's a very, very important point, particularly when you're dealing with new clients or clients that don't fully understand the breadth and width of public relations, that you have to bring them up to speed on the benefits thereof, so to speak. Can you go into a little bit more detail about the sorts of things you had to do to bring, if nothing else, the more senior executives on board with the public relations outreach efforts, as compared to maybe the communications director who fully understands it, but the senior officials don't, and there's a little bit of hesitation on the part of senior officials to move forward? How have you resolved that, issues like that?
Well, first of all, I would actually take a step back and ask them, hey, what caught your attention about public relations in the first place? Like, why did public relations cross your radar, and why did it take until now? Because if you're a large corporation or a company, oftentimes they would have a really good PR strategy in place to, one, build favorability in the market, and two, any type of reputation management, they're a step ahead of the curve in case something does happen. They've already built enough brand equity so that they can communicate to their clients, and if there's any mistakes on their end, there's quick turnaround, there's clear communication. So I would try to understand, hey, why did it take you so long to think about PR first, and then ask them, okay, if this happens, what systems or solutions you have in place to overcome this with your large list of clients, right?
And what sort of a range of responses did you get when you asked questions like that?
Oh, of course, a light bulb kind of clicks, and then because now I'm just trying to ask the right questions to put them in the shoes of their audience.
Well, I think that really is important, because again, there are certain. I've heard it many times on the show that certain people at senior levels don't see either the need for it, or why do we have to spend that kind of money on these kinds of things when maybe we can just do advertising? That sort of education has to take place, and perhaps it's still taking place today with some senior officials.
Yeah, it's all about just continuing that perception that you've already built, that trust that you've already built. Yeah, okay, you have a lot of clients, you do great marketing, but then it's just so great when you see a client get published, and they had clients from 10 years ago that's been working with them, and it kind of just builds this community that trusts in them. They're like, wow, okay, the person that's been taking care of me and my business for 10 years, they're featured here, and here, and they're speaking. And I've been working with them ever since the start. So it kind of reaffirms them that they're with the right person.
In terms of dealing with some of the clients that are new to you, what have you found some of the problems that they bring to you, maybe more difficult problems that they bring to you that they themselves have not been able to resolve?
Yeah. So the biggest thing with new clients, Most of the time I get 50-50. Some people, they already know that visibility is their problem and they want to make sure that they have enough trust for whatever product that they're launching or partnerships that they're trying to solidify to get their business to the next level. The other half would be clients who have been burned in the past, have been overpromised and underdelivered, no clear communication on the process, because sometimes, I'll be honest, PR takes time to cultivate that relationship to get you featured, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to have clear communication with your client on the process and walk them through and help navigate meeting guidelines for certain publications or building up enough of a portfolio to pitch them properly and helping them understand that, hey, Forbes isn't going to take you right away most of the time. So we got to build you up to that, right? So there's that too.
Mm-hmm. Well, this has been a very, very interesting conversation about you and your clients and future clients. Are there some things that perhaps we have not touched on that you think we should cover in our conversation today?
Yeah. You're right. There's quite a bit that we went over. It's a really good conversation. The things that, the biggest thing that I would magnify in this conversation is just PR is building relationships as well as the people that you pitch to. So if you're intentional and purposeful with delivering your message, even if you're pitching yourself, that will go a long way.
Well, I tell you, you have provided us some excellent information. And, let me ask if you have any closing remarks.
Closing remarks? Yeah. Well, as the internet expands and more people are putting themselves out there, if you stick to your truth, your values, and who you are, you'll attract the right people.
Well, Anna, let me say thank you so very, very much for contributing your information to us today. I'm sure a lot of people will benefit from it. My guest today has been Anna Tran. She is the head of Level Up with Anna PR, and she joined us today from Vancouver, British Columbia. Anna, thank you once again for being on the podcast. And I'm sure that once the listeners hear you, that you're going to get a lot more visibility as well.
I appreciate it, Peter. It's been a pleasure.
And to my listeners, I hope that you've enjoyed listening to Anna. And if you'd like to reach out to her again, once again, it's Level Up with Anna PR. She's in Vancouver, British Columbia. And also thank you again for listening to the Public Relations Review podcast. And, of course, share this with your friends and colleagues. And look forward to the next edition. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us on the Public Relations Review podcast. We invite you to share this episode with your friends and colleagues, and we greatly appreciate your reviews and feedback, which help us improve and grow. The Public Relations Review podcast is produced by Peter Woolfolk in the Washington, D.C. suburb of Silver Spring, Maryland. Thank you for listening, and please share this podcast with your colleagues.
Hello, this is Peter Woolfolk. First, let me say thank you so much for being a listener. Now, I want to alert you to our shiny new podcast website located at podpage.com. However, you can go directly to the podcast site located at publicrelationsreviewpodcast.com. There, you can contact me through email. You can leave a voice message. You can leave a review. You can read an episode blog and frequently learn about the podcast guests. You might also want to suggest podcast topic ideas or even suggest a guest. You can also let me know if you would like to receive our podcast listener logo that you can post on your social media. So I look forward to hearing from you about our new podcast website. Thank you so much for listening to the Public Relations Review podcast, and have a great day.